Doogee v30T. It looks incredible. Firstly, the screen panel is exactly what you'd expect from a modern smartphone. It's wide, it's bright, it's detailed, it's got a high refresh rate, up to 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate on a 1080p IPS screen. I'm gonna take it outside and do what it's really intended for, because this phone makes a lot of sense as an enterprise phone. If you're maybe a driver who need to know that your phone will last all day, taking deliveries, a sat nav, taking photos, etc., that's gonna be fantastic. It's massive battery, which is sort of twice the size of a normal phone battery, will probably do 2 full days of normal usage, so I'm not gonna have to worry about charging it so often. But what it's really for there is it's enough battery to manage maybe a 12-hour shift. Maybe your work demands you to have a phone and use it throughout the day. Well, this giant battery will mean that you can rely on it to last for a full day. So for me, it might just be my go everywhere, live in my car, and just save running out the battery on my Z Fold 3. This is a rugged phone. It's definitely more suited to people who are going to be wearing it on a tool belt or carrying it in a caddy like this, rather than slipping it into a pocket. Let's go and test out the camera as well. For someone who works outdoors, or maybe for companies who are seeking to buy a whole lot of phones for the people on the factory floor and they need to work all day through a 12-hour shift, or maybe for an expedition and you're going to be away from charging for days on end, this phone makes a lot of sense. I've got a few sort of ruggedness tests in mind. Suggestions in the comments below if you've got sort of how you want to see it tested, dropped from certain heights, water damage, hot coffee, the toddler test, and just see how it fares from those. But the other standout feature is the camera array, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to switch to that camera. So I think you'd struggle to find a better camera array on many phones at this price point. Firstly, the main sensor is a 108 megapixel main sensor, and although you're only exporting sort of 12 megapixel photos from that, it still gives you incredible detail. Although I have to say, when I was testing it with my kids, sometimes the shutter lags behind the press a little bit, which is a bit annoying. But then that happened on the first time I had a Samsung Ultra phone as well. So that might be something to do with the software. Really, the hardware is as good as most of the flagships from the bigger brand. And where those brands do better than this is actually in their computational photography, in their software. So you could rely on third-party camera apps like Filmic and get even better out of these. It does have an ultra-wide camera as well as this night vision camera as well, which is 2 infrared sort of torches. It's not a thermal imager. It has 2 infrared LEDs which actually illuminate the subject and allows you to sort of take photos and videos at night. So as you can see, it's quite dark out here right now, but it's just a good opportunity to test out this infrared sensor. So this is actually the ordinary front camera that was with the LED lights, the normal LED lights switched on. It has this night vision mode, which is an infrared sensor essentially. So it's not like thermal infrared, but it uses 2 infrared LEDs to actually illuminate objects even at night time. And again, this will point to definite use cases, like maybe you need to scan QR codes in the dark, or maybe you need to keep record of a site or something, or an incident, and actually document that in the dark. Well, you could do that with this infrared night sight camera. It's not thermal infrared, but you could add something like the Infrared X-Firm that I've been exploring, or indeed you could check out the S98 from Doogee, which actually has a thermal infrared camera built in. That has an ordinary camera, just a wide mode, and that has this night sight infrared, and it also has the thermal infrared built in as well. So you can actually see the extent to which this kind of infrared, almost torch, shines out. It's good for just a few meters in front of you, really. This is the wider camera, and now I'm going to just put it up next to the same me walking through this woods on my Z Fold 3, and then next to it on the M6 Mark II, which is my sort of higher quality 4K camera. So this is the Z Fold 3. Well, what do you think? Is there much of a difference there? This is on its main sensor camera. This is now the Samsung Z Fold 3's ultra wide. Lovely seeing the deer skip away in this woods. Incredible. And this camera, of course, this has its third camera is actually a telephoto, just 2 times on this one, which is more for portraits. You're still getting on the Doogee, the standard kind of portrait mode and things like that. And you have got a front-facing camera, which is fine, good in fact. If you need it to do a video call when you're on site, it's perfectly usable. I'm sure like some kind of filter or skin smoothing's on here. without my knowing. It's not as expensive as a premium rival. It's not like a Samsung or an Apple phone, and that suits it well because it is going to be bought by people with specific work use cases or companies who need phones for their workers for specific uses. So that might be someone who works in the field, it might be somebody working on a construction site, and believe me, the battery is so big you could probably charge other devices from it with no issues. And to be honest, it's so rugged that it's more likely to damage your brickwork than it is to be damaged by falling on it. My wife suggested we actually try the toddler play test and see if it's rugged enough to stand up to an hour on my boy's workbench. But if that's not you, if you're looking for a phone that's a normal phone most of the time, but then sometimes you need to use it as one of those specific work cases, you might find it actually a nuisance because it is very heavy. It is an absolute mammoth. The word brick is used quite a lot. It's not a brick, I'd say, but it is huge. You might just want to get a more ordinary phone and a rugged case with a battery in it, or maybe a power bank if you need to use a phone for extended periods of time. But I've gone off topic here a bit. The battery is most certainly a benefit for the people who need it, where slipping into your jeans isn't a priority. You also get a 66-watt charger in the box. Happens to be a European, so I'm not going to use it. And a cable. And these are things that don't cost the company all that much to do, but they do add quite a bit of value for the individual user. That's going to save you maybe 40 quid for a fast charger if you don't have one, and 20 quid for a good case, because this rugged sort of case it's in is good enough. And in fact, you get a screen protector which comes with it. The actual casing of the phone is going to be as good as any rugged case is going to be as well. Although I do find that screen protectors do introduce quite a little bit of reflection, and that makes the screen less easy to use on a bright day. But this is going to be ideal for anyone who works in the field, on site, for all day outdoors, maybe in the environment, for instance, forestry commission, or the oil industry, or defense. I'm impressed. It is rated IP69K, which is the top ingress protection, that means IP, and 6 means the highest dust protection, and the 9K is the highest level of water pressure protection. So the other rating they specify is actually MIL-STD-810H, which is shock testing to a military standard. Nice. However, I don't think this means that you should go out to purposely abuse the thing. I remember a friend taking his supposedly indestructible 2002 Nokia, and well, it didn't withstand that cricket bat. Also, those testing criteria aren't actually carried out by a third party. They're tests that a manufacturer has to take them through. They keep their evidence should they ever need to prove that that's the case. Let's talk about it as a video and sound device now, because let's load up a YouTube. I've been exploring different launchers on here. Only going to take one of these two. I still think it would have been the Nova Air, because you can see the size difference is big, and you can read Kindles, of course. It's quite loud. The Nova Air that I've got, but right now the recommendation would be the Nova Air 2, of course. It's not as nice and bassy. Let's compare it to the Z Fold 3. More details. So this is an OLED. This is obviously the flexible interior panel. You can see that it is a bit brighter. This is at maximum brightness. Yeah, but it's certainly not bad, is it? And you can, if I try and find the same point in the videos, you see, well, okay, to my naked eyes, this certainly looks like a truer color here, and this is a bit duller, a bit more washed out, but OLED is fantastic when compared very much side by side with an IPS LCD panel. Let's try the sound out now. Screen and then open out into a glorious large size E-Ink on the front OLED screen, and then open out into a glorious large size E-Ink. Actually, I'm a bit surprised the Samsung actually didn't come out that well in that sound test, and this actually did pretty well. Let me know. A sort of normal volume. And that's making me think that perhaps these Hisense phones, these E-Ink phones are... I think the Samsung sounds better at a normal volume, but actually the Doogee is going slightly louder, and that's quite a nice thing to have, especially if you're using it outdoors. It's certainly fine for playing videos. One other thing is I found the haptic feedbacks, that's the little vibrations as you touch the keys, to be absolutely awful, so I just turned them off straight away. I'm coming from the Samsung, which has done a really lovely job with the haptic feedback. You hardly notice it. It's this subtle little vibration as you tap any button on the thing. This, you get a kind of horrible loud buzz. not something I'm into. It's just totally OTT. Maybe that's something they can cure. You just want that tiny little, almost like a click. You certainly don't need a sound. So just prefer without any kind of haptic feedback there. How easy is it to use? Well, this is an Android phone, so if you're used to using Android phones, you'll feel absolutely at home. There isn't a lot of difference between the original launcher and the kind of stock Android. I've taken to playing about with different launchers myself. That's one major benefit of Android, is how open it is and how you can customize it to the way that you want to use it. And of course, you can download every single app you might want here on Google Play. Of course, if you're used to using an iPhone, you might struggle somewhat coming from that ecosystem to Android, but as soon as you've discovered all the places, you'll be right at home on Android. It is a mature and well-developed platform. So thanks so much to Doogee for sending this out for review. It certainly is what it says on the tin. It certainly is a rugged smartphone for enterprise use. And now I'm going to go ahead and think about some extreme ways to test out the ruggedness. Let me know in the comments if you've got any ideas of things you'd like to see it tested with. That might be an interesting video.